Hello, sorry guys. I think I was muted. Sorry everyone. Sorry everyone. So yeah, sorry. So I think we can go back again. We had not gone far, so I didn't check my sound. We can start again. Can you hear me now? So if you can hear me, guys, say something. Say hi, or say hi. Can you hear me now? Charles Mutuko, Mukua, can you hear me? So I think I've fixed my sound. If you can hear me, you can say hi. Okay. So start again. Sorry for that, some technical errors. Actually, this week on Monday, market was relatively quiet. We didn't have, okay, thank you guys. So we didn't have high impact in the market. We didn't have high impact events in the market. So it was relatively quiet. And then on Tuesday, we had bank holidays. We had New Zealand bank holiday. We had Australia bank holiday. And then we had Italian bank holiday. So on Tuesday, those who are trading, we were able to see low volatility or a very small activity on New Zealand pairs and Australian dollar pairs, and also euro. But in the evening during New York session, I believe we saw some movement after the US CB consumer confidence data was released, which was previously at 104, 104.0. The expected value was to be 104.1. And then we can see the actual value that was released was lower than forecast, which was 101.1. So if you want to understand more about that impact, we said that you can click this folder and you can see that actual greater than forecast is good for the currency, whereas that the data that was released was actually lower than forecast. Then we had new home sales for US still at 5 p.m. on Tuesday, where the initial data was at 623,000. It was expected to rise to around 633,000. And we can see here it performed way better to around 683,000. So that was good, although it was much of a mixed reaction, where you had a negative data and a positive data at the same time. Then on Wednesday, we had this high impact event for Australia. That was CPI quarter over quarter, that is inflation, which was around 1.9%. It was expected to reduce to around 1.3%, and the actual value actually reduced to around 1.4%. Yeah, it was not lower than a forecast, but it reduced from the previous value, which was 1.9%. And we can see that we're able to see that the effect is that the actual greater than forecast is good for the currency. So this one was somehow low than the previous one, although slightly higher than forecast. Then inflation year over year, it actually reduced from 6.8%, and we expected it to reduce to around 6.5%. And yeah, it reduced to around 6.3%. And we want to see the effect where we can see actual greater than forecast. It's good for the currency. So this one was lower than forecast, meaning on Wednesday, probably those who are trading Australian dollar pair, we saw it somehow weaken, especially those who are trading Euro AUD. You saw Australian dollar became weak almost the whole day. And then we had the trimmed CPI, which also reduced from 1.7%, which was 1.7%. The forecast value was 1.4%, but then it reduced to around 1.2%. So relatively, we can see in Australia, inflation, they're able to control the inflation, and the inflation is going down. So there might be a possibility that in Australia, we might not expect a hike in rates, and we'll see that in the next slide. Or maybe when we are looking at next week economic events, because we're expecting Australia to reduce their interest rates or their bank rates next week. So we might want to see the forecasts. Then today being on a Thursday. So today being on a Thursday, we had some US high impact events at 3:30, and that is during New York session. And we can see that this is advanced GDP and was around 2.6%. We expected it to reduce to around 2.0%, but then it reduced significantly to around 1.1%. And we may want to see what was the effect. And we can see actual greater than forecast is good for the currency. So this one was not greater than forecast, meaning USD was somehow weak. We expect USD to be somehow weak. But again, if you look at the next event, was unemployment claims. Unemployment was 246,000. We expected it to rise to around 247,000. But what happened? It reduced to around 230,000, which was positive for USD. So I believe, again, that was a mixed reaction in the market. At the same time, during 3:30, we had advanced GDP price index quarter over quarter, which was at 3.9%, expected to reduce, but it increased to 4.0%. That was way better for US. That is for USD currency. And then we had pending home sales, negative, natural gas storage, also readings actually rose from 75 billion, expected was 76 billion, but then it went way higher to around 79 billion. So you may also want to understand the effect of it, where actual less than forecast is good for the currency. So we wanted to see it reduce, but we saw it increase. So that's why it's indicated in red, meaning it wasn't positive for USD. And then here comes the D-Day for this week. So this week, I believe most traders were expecting these events tomorrow on Friday. And at 2:30 a.m., we expect Tokyo core CPI, that is inflation over year over year. At the moment, it's at 3.2%. We expect it to remain at 3.2%, but again, the actual value is the one that will determine. So if the actual value that will be released will be greater than forecast, then we might expect yen tomorrow to be relatively strong across the market. And then we'll have the unemployment rates and the other data following there. The other important one will be the Bank of Japan outlook report. So we want to see the report more hawkish, that is more positive. If the report will be positive, then we might expect again yen pair to be relatively strong across the market. And then we have monetary policy the same day. So as you can see, yen tomorrow will have some activity. And then this will be our focus, the BOJ policy rate. Actually, the policy rates in Japan, they have tried to maintain them at a certain level, which is negative 1.0%. And we expect the rates to remain at the same level, which is negative 0.1%. But again, if the actual data will be released and it will be greater than forecast, then we might expect yen to be more strong. And if it will remain the same, then it would be much, because that is the same data that they have been releasing. But again, it's good to notice that Japan, we have a new governor, and as we can see, the former governor, who was Governor Kuroda, tried to maintain the rates at negative 0.1%. So investors are keen to see if the new governor, who is Governor Ueda, will follow the same route, that is to maintain the rates at negative 0.1%, or maybe we might have some changes. So yen tomorrow will be a good pair. Maybe you may want to check these events because they will happen very early in the morning. So you may want to see what will happen, and then probably you can have a good decision along the day. Then not only yen, but we'll have euro along all day, where we'll have Germany prelim CPI inflation month over month, which is at 0.8%, and we expect it to reduce to around 0.6%. Again, if the actual greater than forecast, then we might expect also euro to join yen and maybe to be relatively strong along the day, if both of their data will be positive. But again, if it will be lower than forecast, then euro might be weak, relatively weak. So that's just a possibility, and which will be determined by the actual data that will be released. Then, as I said, we also have Bank of Japan press conference. So tomorrow you might want to follow what is happening if you're trading yen. And then in the evening, that is during New York session. So tomorrow seems to be a good day. During New York session, we'll have Canada GDP month over month, and we can see the current data is 0.5%. Current values that we have. Forecast is 0.2%. So the actual data that will be released, if it will be greater than forecast, then we might also expect CAD to be relatively strong. But again, if it will be lower, then we might expect CAD to be, that is Canadian dollar, to be relatively weak in the market. At the same time, 3:30 p.m., we will have some high economic event from US again, where we will have core PCE price index month over month. The current data that we have is 0.3%. We expect it to maintain the same value, 0.3%. But again, if the actual data that will be released will be greater than forecast, then that will be good for the currency. We might expect USD to gain strength. But if again it will be the other way around, then USD might be somehow weak. Then we'll have employment cost index quarter over quarter, where we can see same data. It's at 1%. We expect it to increase to around 1.1%. So if the actual data that will be released will be greater than forecast, then it means that will be positive for the currency. So then it's good to notice that for most traders, we are also interested with the next week economic events. Next week it will be a good week in the market. But on Monday we might have relatively low movements or small volumes in the market. So it might be a quiet day since we have several bank holidays. The first one being the Chinese. So we have China bank holiday. Then we also have Switzerland bank holiday affecting Swiss franc. We also have UK bank holiday affecting pound, those who are trading pound. We'll have French bank holiday, Germany bank holiday, and Italian bank holidays affecting euro. So as you can see, we'll have low volumes for euro, pound, and Swiss franc. So it might be somehow a quiet day, but in the evening, maybe we might have an event here that might probably bring some volatility. That is US ISM manufacturing PMI, where the data is 46.3 at the moment. And then you can see actual greater than forecast is good for the currency. So we might want to see that data increasing, and that might cause maybe USD to be strong along that day. And then on Tuesday, remember this week we said that inflation data for Australia are reduced. So Australia are not really struggling with inflation. And with that, we expect probably they might not raise their rates. And as we can see, the current rates that we have is 3.6%. And it's expected the rates to remain at 3%. So it goes hand in hand with whatever the inflation is doing. And if the actual will be greater than forecast, then we might expect Australian dollar to be somehow strong. But again, if it will probably be low, if they decide to reduce it, then it might not be positive for Australia. But yeah, we expect it to remain the same or even to have a slight increase. So that will be a key data to consider next week on Tuesday. And in the evening, we'll have the Reserve Bank Governor, Lowe, will be speaking, will be giving a speech. So yeah, we might want to see a positive speech, which might make maybe Australian dollar to be strong, or probably he'll be giving an outlook of the economy, or even why they made the decision to either maintain the rates at that level, or even to increase the rates. Then at 5 p.m., we'll have USD jobs openings, which currently it's at 9.93 m, and we might expect. So if the actual value will be greater than a forecast, then that might be good for the currency. So we'll have a keen eye on these actual values that will be released. Then I think the D-Day will be on Wednesday. That is where we all aim. On Wednesday, very early in the morning, we'll have New Zealand employment data, where at the moment it's at 0.2%, and unemployment is at 3.4%. So for a positive economy, for a growing economy, we want to see the employment increasing and unemployment reducing. At the same day, we'll have Japan bank holiday. So for Japan, it might be relatively quiet day. And then in the evening, that is when we'll have ADP, non-farm employment change. Considering on Friday, we are going to have NFP. So ADP data is released first because it's basically a forecast of what might happen on Friday. So if the actual will be greater than forecast, then this will be good for USD, but it will be forecasting what will happen on Friday. Then at night, that is when we'll have the Federal Open Market Committee statement, and then we'll have Fed funds rates, federal funds rates. So we expect the rates in US to increase from 5% to around 5.25%. And if that happens, I believe then USD will join NZD, that is New Zealand dollar, having the highest rates in our list here at 5.25%. And it's good to understand if those rates will hike, and then that one might be positive for USD. So as I said, if you don't understand about the event, you just need to click this folder, and then you're able to see that actual greater than forecast is good for the currency. So if the data that will be released here will be greater than forecast, then we might expect now USD to be strong. So that is the key data next week for USD and the press conference. And again, we'll have Euro. Again, we'll have Euro having their rates currently at 3.5%. So we might also want to see those rates either increase or even maintain the same. And also unemployment claims for US. Again, we'll have ECB press conference affecting Euro. Friday, again, we'll have Japan bank holiday. Swiss franc, CPI month over month, that is inflation. So this is another D-Day on Friday that traders expect, NFP. So as I said, the ADP non-farm that we have on Wednesday, it's basically a forecast of what we expect on Friday. So on Friday, we'll have the main data, which is NFP. So if you want to understand about NFP, you can see that actual greater, if the actual value will be greater than forecast, then it will be good for the currency. So for traders, it's good to have to know what you're expecting next week. It will be a good day, and you will need to keep an eye on those events, the actual events. So I think that is it on the economic calendar. That is what we expect. So we can go to the charts and maybe have the technical view, the technical side of it. And then we see probably what we're expecting on some of these currencies. And I may want to start with Euro USD, Euro CAD. So just a minute, I share my chart. There we go. If you can see my chart, let me know. So we have Euro CAD here, and for Euro pairs, they have been on an uptrend. And if we go to a weekly time frame on Euro CAD, we can see certain zones that we have. So at the moment, Euro CAD has reached a resistance area at this point. So we can see a resistance area here, where we had some good sales from this point. Again, market came back to that area and we had sales. So several retests at that point, and we were seeing some strong rejections. And this week, actually, because this is a weekly time frame, we saw price getting back to that area, and there was a strong rejection. So what we need to do is to go to maybe to a lower time frame and then have a clear picture of what is happening. So as we can see, probably you could have identified this trend line, and that trend line is the one that is giving us some demand. And we can see Eurocard broke this zone. So we had a breakout on the upper side, a retest again at this area. So it was a resistance, now it's a support, where we had again confluence with the trend line, and we have seen some good buys, that is from last week. But again, market has reached our resistance on a weekly time frame, this resistance, as you can see. So there is a probability market, maybe we might see some sales, and we saw that happening today. So if you go to a 4-hour time frame, you can see market respected that zone. So we have been having sales, and since it's still an uptrend, what we might want to see is maybe a retest back at this area that we had broken, and probably a continuation back to test that zone again. Or if that won't happen, maybe supply will be strong, then we might expect Eurocard probably to have a sell back to our trend line, where we might be looking for now other buys. So for Eurocard, we might be expecting buys at this area, possible buys at these areas. Either retest this zone, bumps back to retest again this area, or else break this zone that we have here to come and retest this higher time frame trend line that we have. And if on a weekly time frame we have a breakout on this price that is around 1.51170, if we happen to have a breakout, if this bullish momentum continues, then we might be aiming for these higher prices around 1.547 480 for Eurocard. So that is what we have on Eurocard. At the moment, we may want to focus with buys on a higher time frame, or once we have retest, then you can look for some of the confirmations, then you can take your trade. So that is what we have on Eurocard. And again on Euro USD, so I'll check with Euro USD. Euro USD is the same. We have an uptrend. If you go to a daily time frame, you can see we have been having good buys on Euro USD. We have this upward structure, an uptrend structure, and we have this trend line that has been providing us with good entry points for buys. So if you can allow me to go to 4-hour time frame, you are able to see that structure clearly, able to see that uptrend structure clearly. So every time market has been coming to this trend line, retesting this trend line, we have been seeing some good buys. As you can see, we had strong rejections, buys, market came back at this area, and then we saw buys. But again, we are having an interesting structure at this point, where market is now fading again to create new highs. So we have the market retesting these prices thrice, almost the 4th time today. And we saw a very strong, we had a breakout, and then it ended up being a very strong rejection to the downside. And that strong rejection actually gave us some sales today. So today we had some sales on Euro USD, but again, still, because it's still an uptrend, we may want to focus with buys. So once the price gets to this trend line, we may want to focus with buys. But if we have a breakout, because remember, breakouts can happen. So if we have a breakout, then we might be targeting these lower prices on Euro USD. The reason we'll be targeting these lower prices, since this is where the demand, this momentum started. So once we have a breakout from this trend line, it means that's a reversal, and then we might be targeting these lower prices. But if bullish momentum on Euro USD persists, then we might be targeting this area. So the reason we might be targeting this price, it's because this is on 27th March 2022. We saw a strong rejection from this price, and from that strong rejection, we had sales until we saw this reversal. So we might expect, if market breaks this price around go to 4-hour time frame. So if market breaks this zone, then this will be our target on the upper side, because remember, you need to have alternative. If the breakout happens on the upper side, this will be our target. If the breakout happens on the lower side, then probably this will be our target. But as per now, market is trading within these ranges. So we are failing to create new highs, and we are also failing to create new lows. That is what we have on technicals for Euro USD. And then going to GBP USD. Hello, Nelson, you're welcome. Going to GBP USD, if you start with the weekly time frame, it's not so much different from Euro USD because of the positive correlation that we have on those two pairs. So as we can see, it has been an uptrend, but again, market is somehow struggling to break above this area. So we had a retest at this point, another retest at this point. Market came back to that price and we had a strong rejection. So currently we are trying to have a breakout there. So this is an area where you may want to observe what will happen in the market. But if market breaks out on a weekly time frame, this will be our target, around 1.26553. But if this zone, if the resistance becomes so strong, if supply becomes so strong on this area, then we might expect GBP USD to drop back to this area where the whole of this movement, this momentum started. So we might have those two options on a weekly time frame, can have breakout on the upper side, targeting this point, or even breakout on the lower side, targeting this point. So if you go to a 4-hour time frame, currently market is consolidating. So you may want to see breakout on either side. So GBP USD is currently consolidating. As we go to Euro JPY, so Euro JPY, not much happening. We are at a resistance area. So probably we can see a sell or even a breakout on the upper side. So on this one, it's more correlated to what is happening on Euro USD and Euro CAD, because if Euro is strong, probably you might expect that breakout. But again, if we have reversals on our previous pairs, then on this resistance area, we might see reversal back to these areas, back to this point, or even to this lower point. So at the moment, Euro JPY has failed to create a new high, and it has also failed to create a new low. So we might want to see a breakout happening. Then USD JPY, we have this channel on a 4-hour time frame. So we might expect we have already seen some rejections. So we might have buys back to this zone that we have here around 134.800. But again, if we have a breakout on the lower side, this will be our target, 130.400. And if it breaks on the upper side, if this zone becomes so strong, the trend line, then we might expect market to obey that channel that we have, that is on a 4-hour time frame. Then going to GBP JPY, I believe it's the same because it's yen pairs. So market is still failing to create a new highs or even new lows. That is what we saw on Euro JPY. Market failing to create new lows or even new highs. So same case for yen. If we break on the lower side, this will be our target, around 162.90. Then if it breaks on the upper side, so on a daily time frame, you can see this zone clearly. That will be our target. Going to USD CHF on a daily time frame, it has been on a downtrend. It has been on a downtrend, as you can see. So we have been focusing on sales on USD CHF. So if you go to 4-hour time frame, then you have that trend line, a clear trend line, and you can see market is trying to has already broken that trend line. So probably we might have a retest back to these areas, and then maybe a strong buy back to this resistance on the upper side around 0.94220. So that might be our target. If we respect this trend line, if we retest it and respect it, we might have that bounce. That is on USD, Swiss franc. Then on US oil, we can see we had gap. For those who are trading US oil, we had gap here. And this week we have managed to close that gap. So after closing that gap, we want to see if market will bounce and continue. We reverse and again continue with the main uptrend, or again, we can break to the lower side and probably continue itself. So if it will be a buy, you may want first to see market retesting this trend line. Then from that trend line, you may want to see a bumps respecting that trend line, or else we can break on the upper side and target these upper prices around 81.912 per barrel. So that is the technical that we have on US oil. On gold, it's more of a consolidation on a 4-hour time frame. Market is failing to create new highs, as you can see, and it's also failing to create new lows. It has been on an uptrend all along, but right now it's more of a consolidation. So on a daily time frame, we are at a resistance. So you can see when we had these prices around 2022 March, we had a very strong sell, and we are back to that area. So probably we might see sells, but then it will need to be confirmed. So if the market will break below this structure and start creating lower lows, then we might now look for sells back to these lower prices around 1812. That is USD gold, currently at a consolidation. So you may want to see a breakout on either side. US 30, we can see it's at a resistance area. So it has been failing to break this trend line that we have here. And this is where the demand started. So if it totally fails to break that trend line, then we might want to see sales back to this demand area. But if it breaks on the upper side, then around 35, these prices, 35 to 90.34 might be our target area because of this resistance that we had here. So if we break on the upper side, this will be our resistance. But if this zone persists, becomes strong, then we can have sales all the way up to these lower prices. So our first target will be around 31,901.10. So that is US 30. And then on US 500, we have on a weekly time frame, market is moving somehow on like a channel. We have two trend lines, as you can clearly see. So we have these upper prices, and then we have these lower prices forming those two trend lines. So at the moment, market has reached on our upper trend line, probably expecting sales back to the lower trend line. So if market obeys that structure, this might be our target. But if it breaks on the upper side, then we might be targeting these higher prices. So we might be targeting these higher prices due to this zone. So this zone will be our target around 4318.58. If we break this trend line, that will be a target. But if we obey it, then we might have sales back to our lower trend line. That is for US 500, S&P 500. Then finally on NASDAQ, we can also see somehow similar to what we have here. So market is rising in a pattern like wedge, where we have two trend lines tending to approach each other. So at the moment, market is trading inside those, inside that wedge or inside those two trend lines, and these are our higher prices. These are our higher prices, and we can see market has reached there and already reacted on the upper trend line, and we had some sells. So we had some sells back to this trend line, though it was more of a consolidation. If you go to a daily time frame, you can see it has been more of a consolidation for NASDAQ. So it has been more of a consolidation. We may want to see either a breakout from this consolidation back to these upper prices around 13,605 due to this zone that we have here, due to this resistance, or else if we can obey this pattern, then probably we can have a sales somewhere. Maybe after we break the lower trend line, we might have sales back to these lower prices. So that is on a daily time frame. If you go to a 4-hour time frame, try to enclose this consolidation, and then you may want to trade after these breakouts. If you have a breakout on the upper side, then this will be our target price. If we have a breakout on the lower side, again breaking the lower trend line, then we might have these lower prices as our target. So that is it that we have on our economic calendar. And then on technicals, that is what basically we have at the moment. So what you might want to do, you might want to have to keep an eye on the economic events that will happen tomorrow, and then follow your strategy to make the right decision on where to enter or even where to exit the trade. So that is it. You have a nice evening, and let's see you then.